Hi, everybody. My name is Jonathan Liu. I am a licensed clinical behavioral health professional here at the Carpenter Center for Health. And I wanted to present a little bit on how to combat loneliness. Just because loneliness is pretty widespread, a lot of people are experiencing it and have been experiencing it since COVID back in 2020. So we're providing this to support your overall well-being. Um, Rest of it doesn't really matter because we don't have anyone here. Some objectives today's presentation that I hope that you can learn the causes and effects of loneliness. I'm sure you already know some of the effects of it and some of the causes of it. And I'm going to provide some really practical ways for you to improve that social connection. Have you ever found yourself saying this to yourself? I don't have anybody. There's no one for me to rely on. No one cares about me. Those kinds of things. Or I have friends and family. Why am I still so lonely? I think these are two sides of the same loneliness coin. People who feel like they don't have anybody, and people who are around so many people but still feel so lonely. So you ask, how can this still be? It's because at the heart of loneliness is a lack of having people, isn't just a lack of having people around you. Based on the research I've done, loneliness is really about the low quality of relationships, not just having a few amount, because people can have a few amount of friends but feel not alone at all. It's because the quality of those relationships are much deeper. And this is related to the second point that sometimes there's a lack of authenticity or how well you can be yourself around others or how well others know who you are. And so there is a big difference between loneliness and solitude. Solitude is not loneliness and vice versa. Solitude is different because people often benefit from being by themselves for a period of time. So think of times when you just want to be by yourself because you're sort of tired or you sort of want some time to recharge. Solitude is an intentional action, or loneliness. None of us really choose to be lonely. There really isn't a lot of choice in that sometimes. The fourth point is that loneliness can be painful. There are a few studies that have found that in the brain, experiencing loneliness and rejection resemble the same experience as physical pain. So this makes sense, evolutionary speaking, because loneliness would have been a sign to rejoin the pack. You shouldn't be by yourself. Go back to where everybody was. Be a part of a community. And so this pain of loneliness can trigger sometimes a fight or flight response and then lead us to become hyper vigilant about others hurting us, usually emotionally, which then can cause us to isolate ourselves from people and then create chronic loneliness. And it sort of becomes this really negative cycle of anticipating negative reactions and so pulling back, feeling more lonely and isolated. Um, so chronic loneliness and situational loneliness, I would say everyone experiences situational loneliness. Let's say if you move jobs, you move to a different town, right? There's going to be some time where you are lonely as you readjust to a different environment. It's the chronic that can be more painful because again, there's that negative cycle that feeds itself. Some of the reasons behind loneliness. People can um, feel loneliness as a result of any of these things. You have the death of a loved one, If you're an empty nester, you can feel sort of the loneliness that is not having your kids around. Unhealthy family patterns can lead to alienation from your family. So, as in maybe you are used to having close family, but after something's done by family members, you needed to create boundaries. And those boundaries, unfortunately, have pushed or have separated you from a lot of the people that maybe you got support from. Retirement can lead to a lot of loneliness. Back in the my talk on retirement, um, you lose a lot of that social interaction you used to have every day. You don't have coworkers, you're not working besides other people, you don't have tasks, and so that lack of space and lack of tasks and people can make us feel really alone. Trauma can make us mistrust others. If you've been hurt by other people in the past, it's harder to trust people in the future. Some of that trauma can lead to the fear-based avoidance, right? Fear of rejection, of criticism. It can lead to low self-esteem, and then negative attitudes when looking at social interactions, as in, no one's going to want to talk to me, or why do I want to be around other people? No one's going to like me. I just push people away. Some of those are some of the negative attitudes I've heard. And I don't want you to feel alone in this, because loneliness, there is a loneliness epidemic happening in our country. 24% of adults feel very or fairly lonely. 27 adults feel little lonely. I mean, if you add those up, we have about 51% of adults, a little more than half adults are feeling some level of loneliness. Globally, men and women are equally lonely. It may differ between a few countries, but on the average, men and women are lonely. Here's another statistics. It's just showing what's loneliness like across all ages. If you the highest age to the highest percentage can be found in ages 19 to 29, with a 27% and 30%, so about 57% feeling some level of loneliness. The least being age 65 and up. And I know that even though it's the lowest, even looking at these percentages, we're still getting about 42% of older adults feeling lonely. So you guys are not alone in your feelings of loneliness here. Unfortunately, loneliness can have severe effects on our mental and physical health. It can lead into an increased risk of all these following conditions. Heart disease, diabetes, depression, addiction, suicidality, dementia, early death. And I don't want this to seem alarmist, but it's also like, it makes sense though. Loneliness produces pain. Pain puts our body through so much stress. And that stress response in our body is not a good one. And if we experience that for a long periods of time, it can lead to some of these health issues. So if anything, this should show us we do need to deal with our loneliness. This isn't something that we should let linger and continue for years on end. But what can you do? So there's a lot of things that I'm going to go through. And I think the key that I want you to think about here is repetition. Right? You can volunteer at a nursing home and have a good conversation with someone for 30 minutes, which is helpful. But you can still feel lonely an hour or two after you go home, after the interaction, because it's not a lasting relationship. It's not like a long-term relationship that's being built. However, the more you go, the more you talk to the same people, the less lonely you'll feel because you're building a relationship. Others are getting to know you. You're getting to know them, vice versa. So the first thing I can offer and say that you should probably try to think about is try to uncover that unconscious bias or that core fear that you have about going out. How do you uncover an unconscious bias? I would say the next time you have an opportunity to go out or go see other people and you don't, or maybe even if you do, notice and think about, write them down. Notice the kinds of messages you're telling yourself. Are they things like, what are you thinking others will feel about you? Or how do you feel about yourself? Build a structured schedule. A structured schedule can help limit the amount of time you spend doing distracting activities like watching TV, social media scrolling, those kinds of things. Those can make your feelings of loneliness worse. Right after watching TV for about 3 or 4 hours, you don't feel any better. In fact, you probably are going to feel worse because you're like, I just wasted this much time. I should have gone out. I should have gone to see somebody. So as if you schedule it, if you schedule those small and short interactions with others, you're gonna have a bigger sense of accomplishment. Social fitness is a great way. Taking workout classes, find other people to work out with, running group, biking group, even walking group. If you like to work out, it would be an easy way to try to get to know somebody through it, and then trying to make a connection with somebody. Community involvement, volunteer somewhere, take a class at a community college or a rec center. If you're a carpenter, you can try going to your local's monthly meeting and get involved there. I've heard some locals have volunteer efforts that people can take part in. Find something that you're interested in and find others who are interested in doing that too. This means that this may seem counterintuitive, but try talking to strangers, as uncomfortable as that may be. Chatting makes us healthier and happier, even if it's for 30 seconds, even if it's the person at the grocery store, at the bank teller, right? This is also can be, if you can view it this way, low risk. Because if it doesn't go well, it's likely that you're not going to see this person again. And really, anyone can do anything for 30 seconds, even no matter how uncomfortable that is. If you start talking to somebody, try to give it 7 minutes. The author Sherry Turkle of Alone Together and Reclaiming Conversation acknowledges that it can be hard, but it's when we stumble and hesitate and have those lulls in the conversation that we reveal ourselves most to each other. So it's around 7 minutes where the conversation can get interesting, and then you can start to get to know each other a little bit more. Schedule FaceTime, face-to-face time, or the digital FaceTime. If you can't do things in person, which is the best because we get the most endorphins from that, schedule a phone call, schedule a video call with someone to reconnect. Because chances are they will probably love to hear from you and they might be feeling lonely themselves. And so afterwards, you're going to definitely feel better after talking with somebody. Relationships, I would caution through texting or email or like Facebook Messenger or those kinds of things. It does have its place. You can get connected. It's just that relationships conducted through those kinds of mediums they tend to fade faster. And so I would just caution around using social media wisely. It's not inherently isolating, but it can create more loneliness. Let's say if you're scrolling through it all the time, seeing all these pictures of other people with their friends and the trips that they're going on, right? I think it's well documented that that kind of scrolling can really lead to more depression, more isolation, and whatnot. It can be used to jumpstart some relationships where you connect over Facebook or Instagram, or you're using the things you maybe have seen to ask your friend more about how are your kids doing, or what's your job like, that kind of thing. Or I saw that you created something and you posted it. What is that? Like using it in productive ways. Also using social media to find gatherings that you can be a part with, like we were saying before, book clubs or knitting clubs or workout groups, that kind of thing. An option would be to get to know your neighbors. They're the closest to you, maybe the easiest to try to get to know. Talking while you guys are out doing yard work, or even just dropping by, dropping some food off, or inviting them over. I know that's probably high risk, but like they are the people who are the closest to you and might be the easiest to connect with. Last but not least, I would say talk about it with somebody, either people you know, family, even just expressing it is going to be really helpful. Um, you can come talk to me. You can come talk to any of the behavioral health specialists and any of the MCL clinics, and I'll go into that a little bit later. But even if you wanted to schedule a one-off and a one-time appointment with me, you'll see how beneficial it can just to be able to talk with somebody about it who doesn't really have a bias towards anything. So, in summary, everyone experiences loneliness. Don't want you to feel alone in that. And loneliness it happens to all of us. And that loneliness can have a serious effect on our physical and mental health. And so really start by trying to do something small. If it's just trying to talk to somebody for 30 seconds, trying to look up a class somewhere, meetups. I think meetup.com is the website, trying to find something there you'd like to go to, and that's usually free. Just try to do something small. And just to remind you, here at the Carpenter Center for Health, there's behavioral health. There's me. I can do therapy in person, telephone, video. We have primary care, care management, physical therapy, and chiropractics. My hours, I'm here Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday from 8 to 5. Tuesdays are my late day from 10 to 7. You can visit that website. You can call us at that number listed, or you can scan this QR code and it'll bring you to, I think, the website. Yes, the website is probably that. And if you didn't know, you also have access to the other 5 clinics of the MCL. Northbrook, Elgin, Utica, Grays Lake, Joliet. You don't have to go to those in person. Like, let's say you look at my schedule and the time you want isn't available. You have 5 other therapists who you can connect with virtually to see somebody. And I've highlighted the late hours because I know some of you are probably working. These are their late hours, so you can sort of pick what's going to be work best with your schedule. You also have 12 free telehealth sessions through Lyra. It's an online platform to find a therapist near you. It could be, or far from you if you just want to do video, but you get 12 free sessions with them. After that, you have to use your insurance for it. And there's also psychiatry. And if you feel like you're maybe not ready for therapy, there's coaching. Coaching is like therapy light. It's not as intense, and it maybe can feel a little bit more laid back. All right. Well, thank you for joining us today. I'll ask Clyde's about questions, but you can't really ask questions here. But feel free to email us or email me or call us, and hope this was helpful.